This is Ken Spence.
And show it
Where
on
his
the,
shot.
Hold it square up against the,
This is Ken Spence where he got shot in the arm. And this is James Berard, who's lying dead just outside the frame of this picture. This guy's name is Mork. I don't know him, but these two have been in contact. He lives in Washington, and they've stayed in contact over the years. This guy was killed in a truck accident while we were there. And this guy was the point man in this. And this guy, Ken Spence, when I came onto the scene, he was buried in, it was at a stream crossing, like that one photo, and he was buried in mud up to his thighs, and he's like that, and he's shot in the arm, and he's
show
fi-
that photo.
Yeah, this is pretty much what it looked like.
There you go.
Yeah, this is exactly what it looked like in the little clearing where this event happened, muddy like that, and stream crossing. And he was, the scene I came onto, he's firing his M16 on full automatic with one hand because he's shot in the arm. And then he's screaming, I got him, can you see him, can you see him? And then he runs out of ammo in the magazine and he throws his weapon down and starts pulling grenades off his belt and pulling the pins out with his teeth. Now, I'd always heard, it was only movies that you can do that, because in all our training, they're telling us, hey, you can't pull a pin out with your teeth. That guy was doing it.
Ah.
So I guess if you really need to, you can.
And you probably never saw an enemy that day.
I never did, no.
so Jim, I've known you for quite a while, and you seem like so-called normal. How did this affect you? I mean, this is way before the post-traumatic stress things of today. You seem to have been able to justify it in your mind. Care to talk about that?
Well, I think it says something about your mental health that you think that I'm normal. That makes me worry a little bit about you.
No, that's a good question because you do counsel PTSD guys.
I have.
You have.
I don't do that anymore.
So obviously you know all the symptoms.
Yeah, pretty much from the inside out. Well, not all of them. I know the ones that I'm most familiar with are anger and depression.
Right.
So
Which
I
would
got
be
a good,
result, though.
dose of both of those. But as I've aged and I've lost many brain cells, I think it's made me a much healthier human being. Distance and time helps. And I've got a hard-headed woman I'm married to, and so she's hung in there with me. So
You speak volumes there because it's hard for women to put up with us.
yes, I feel really bad about who she used to live with, and so I've been doing my penance trying to make up for that these last few years. The first 25 years were a little rough, but once you get through those, it gets easier.
Does the VA treat you for PTSD?
No, but I have gone to a couple of counseling programs through the VA, and not too long ago. But yes, I've been through the program.
And do you have a diagnosis with the VA of PTSD?
Oh, it's something that yes, I do, but I don't talk about it often. But I have a 50% rating for PTSD.
Well, you're the perfect guy to counsel others for that. It's good.
Well, I did my counseling before I had the rating, so.
But even then, you know the symptoms to look for.
Right. Yeah, well, they're well written. I don't actually have all of them, but if you count quality of life, which is one of the things that you look at when you're doing a diagnosis, it had definitely impacted the quality of my life for quite a few years.
Yes, yes.
Want to ask a question about the sergeant that you had told me about.
Sergeant Brewer,
Would you
yes.
discuss a situation with him and how you came to be friends with him?
Well, Gary's asking about this, my first platoon sergeant, a man by the name of Sergeant Lucian Brewer, who was, when I first met him, he was a real old guy. Looking back, was only 17 years older than me. He was about 40 when I met him, but he had been through World War II and been through Korea and also been to Vietnam, and he wound up being our platoon sergeant. He joined us while I was at Camp Shelby. And
How lucky for you.
right, but he was an amazing character. He was that if you've watched any of those old 1940s war movies with a tough-ass sergeant, that was him. He'd been in the service when I knew him for well over 20 years, and he was an E6.
So he was always in trouble.
He said he did not do well between wars. You know, he could have been at that movie, The Dirty Dozen, or whatever. Could have been him. You know, so he was a character and a half. But my initial meeting with him was kind of worth telling in that we were at Camp Shelby, and we were a pretty strapped group. We had a company commander that took it all very seriously, and he was an impressive leader. So we were preparing for our first inspection in Camp Shelby, standing by our bunks in our platoon in this Quonset hut barracks, and the inspection's going to be coming up pretty quickly. But you know, it's one of these barracks. There's no real windows, or just screens, and you know, like a screen door, and the door just slams open, and this gruff giant of a man comes in screaming, "My name is Sergeant Brewer. I'm your platoon sergeant. I'm the toughest man in this unit. Turn off that goddamn radio." He goes, I want you all standing at attention by your bunks, and I'm going to come by and I want to hear your name, rank, and what your job is. So, I can do more push-ups than any man in here. If you want to fight me, step on up, you know, and that kind of stuff. Just boisterous, loud, obnoxious, crazy man. And so we all stand at attention next to our cots. Wasn't even a bunk, they were cots, I think. And he's going down the line, and so he gets up to me, and I say, "I'm Private First Class Rothblatt, I'm the medic." He says, "Put on some civilian clothes and meet me in the parking lot. I've got an Austin Healey, you know, meet me at my Austin Healey." It's like, what? You know, and then he goes on to the next guy, and he's going down, and I'm thinking, God, I'm gonna miss an inspection. This guy wants me to put on civilian clothes. This is crazy. So I didn't know what to do. And he's down about 3 or 4 guys by this time, sees I'm just still standing there, and he goes, "God damn it, I told you to put on some civilian clothes and meet me in the parking lot." So I put on civilian clothes, you know, and walked out of my platoon, walked out to the parking lot, and there's this little sports car out there. So I'm standing there, and a few minutes later he comes on out. He's in his fatigues. We get in his car, drive off base to this little bar. We walk into the bar, he buys a 6-pack of beer. We walk back out to his car, he tells me to get in the driver's seat, which I do. And he says, "Okay, I want you to drive like we're not gonna live till tomorrow." And we're hauling ass down this little country road in the middle of nowhere, and Camp Shelby Forest. Road's kind of like this. I'm 6'5". I'm in this little sports car. I got the steering wheel, you know, meshed into my thighs, you know. And he pops open a couple of these beers and hands me one, and then starts telling me that, you know, that he's been to World War II, he's been in Korea, he's been wounded this, wounded that, he's earned every medal there is except the Congressional Medal of Honor, and that we're going to Vietnam, and so it's this hellhole over there, that one of us isn't going to come back alive. and that this is his last chance to win a Congressional Medal of Honor. And he's going on about this. I mean, he just went on and on. I kind of heard the story of his life on this little drive. And he did, but the thing that stood out about it was he never wants me more than 10 meters away from him unless I have his permission. And the other thing he said was that when later on, he got the whole platoon together and he told them that as the medic, I wasn't going to be pulling any of the details. Before him, as a medic, I pulled all kinds of crazy details because the infantrymen were too important, and I was only a medic, you know. But when he got there, he said I wasn't going to be doing any details because when we were really going to be working, that no one would be working as hard as the medic. And so, and that flew. They liked that. So I kind of had a different place in the platoon because of that. That was kind of an interesting thing. And he was gruff but he was always very gentle with me, and I kind of looked at him like a father figure, and I think he looked at me kind of like a son. I learned a lot from him.
So you told me about the stirring stick. Did you get off of that duty? You want to discuss?
I never had that duty.
Okay.
Shit burning he's talking about.
Never forget the smell.
You could always see the columns of smoke wherever, any base camp.
Paddle. All right, with this sergeant, how did he interact with you and the rest of the guys once you got in country?
Oh, he was all business. I mean, when the few times we'd be in base camp, though, he'd get drunk as could be, just wasted drunk, and wound up my last really dealing with him. He got drunk before a mission and was drunk in the field and so it was an ugly scene.
How was that treated?
Well, I thought he was forced to retire, but I've recently been in contact with his daughter, and he wound up being able to stay in the Army for 5 more years after that. So I wondered, what the hell would you have to do for him to get kicked out? Because if that didn't get him kicked out, then he'd been busted. He said when he was telling the story that he'd been his highest rank was E9, and he'd been busted down as low as an E2. So, but I figured if he didn't get kicked out of the service on that, I can't imagine what he would have had to do to get kicked out.
Oh my gosh. So he was with you the whole time?
No, I thought once he got drunk, which was just a few months after we were there, that he had been forced to retire. They had an Article 32 hearing that I went to, and then I saw him one time after that, but and he told me that he was being forced to retire, but obviously he didn't.
I want to ask this question on more of a lighter side. Would you discuss this chicken cooking, these pictures, and show it up here?
All right, well, here's a couple pictures of one of the places we were at. We're cooking a chicken.
Okay.
So we were set up outside this little village, and one of the guys in there and I went out to steal a chicken from the village. So which is what we did, and we brought it back, and we were cooking it, and part of the story, one of the guys, well, the woman from the village that owned the chicken came into our camp all pissed off that we stole the chicken, talked to the company commander, and he came over and he forced one of the guys, not one of the guys that killed the chicken, but to pay her for the chicken. And then the company commander issued an order that no one was to steal any more chickens. So, and our company commander, he was a pretty strapped guy, and he was a great leader, but we had attitude too, so the two of us went back and stole another chicken the next day. And if we got caught, we were going to tell them it was a duck.
The things you have to do to make life tolerable.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a whole lot of leisure fun activities,
No.
so we had to conjure up our own.
So you're getting through your tour, it's like halfway through your tour, but you always stayed in and out of the field
Well, for the first 8 months, I wound up getting transferred to the support battalion.
because you were a short timer?
No, it was that they had promised us as medics that we would do a 6-month rotation, that 6 months in the field, 6 months in base camp. They were a little slow on the uptake on that, but we eventually got the rotation.
But that was pretty standard with medics, and so after humping for 8 months, you finally got,
I got reassigned to a support battalion as an ambulance driver.
okay. And where were you driving the ambulance?
It was between our base camp and the 93rd or 24th Evac, but mostly what we drove was just sick call. People that were too sick to treat by the battalion surgeons or the local dispensaries.
Give some examples.
Well, fever of unknown origin was, or what was it, FUI, fever?
FUO.
FUO, fever of
I've had
unknown
it.
origin. That was a big one. Or guys would be recovering from wounds, but that they'd have to go in and, maybe have something more done, or just things that were beyond kind of aspirin and easy bandaging.
Right. How did you feel about being an ambulance driver?
Oh, it was like being in heaven. It was kickback. I mean, I took advantage of that. Having a sense of the military, one of the things we'd do if we were going to go out on a run, you have to sign the logbook, take an ambulance number, so-and-so, you sign, leaving at such and such a time to go where. So I'd do that. I'd go 0 passengers. And I'd come back at the end of the day, returned at such and such a time, 0 passengers. As long as I'd filled in the blanks, no one cared that I wasn't doing anything. So I had a lot of free time as an ambulance driver. The only time it really caught up with me is if, they had me have to do a run before I got out in my empty ambulance, or we'd have to do night shifts. So sometimes stuff would come up at night.
But the chow got better and you had showers?
Showers. I showered, after having been in the field, and having a shower every month. I figured once I was in base camp, I only needed 1 shower a week. And I felt really clean, my uniform never got dirty. So, I thought of guys took showers every day, but I thought once a week was plenty.
To this day, I take 1, sometimes 2 showers a day. I missed that so much back then.
Yeah, well, the once a month was a little, even that was bad for me.
Well, you weren't around the women.
That's true. No, but it's, what most people don't know, and those of us that spent a month without a shower, is how bad you really can smell. Especially if you've been out on a rainy ambush patrol, and it's just weird, when you're filthy, you just, body is just not just mud and dirt, but just all that whatever. And the ammonia smell that can come off you is, I've never experienced it anywhere except over there, but amazing how bad one can smell.
Could probably
Well,
still.
you can't even smell a person next to you who smells just as bad, but didn't make any difference.
You probably still can smell it today.
I can bring it back pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. And then,
Go ahead.
Quick question, when you were on ambulance patrol or ambulance duty, and you would go how far into the jungle, would you have,
I didn't drive in the jungle, it was just in base camp.
oh, just a base
Just
camp?
Long Bend,
Okay.
this big, huge military complex.
Okay.
We'd go by the Long Bend Jail, LBJ. We'd pass that on the way to one of the hospitals,
So helicopters would maybe bring in a wounded, and then you would take
Yeah,
them
that
and
was-
maybe,
Yeah, that was one Yes.
How does
Well,
it
no,
work?
the wounded would go straight into those
Straight into the
evacuation.
medical treatment facility.
But one of the
Okay.
things stories that's really impressive for me from my experience is, one, I sprained my ankle really badly in the field one day. So bad that I couldn't even stand on it, you know, it was like I was messed up. My foot just swelled up really big. In fact, I got a picture in there of it. But, I did it in base camp. We just came in for a stand down, and brought us in on deuce and a halves. So I took my pack off, and, you know, I'm gonna get a shower and all that, and I just hop off the back of the deuce and a half. And if you've ridden on the deuce and a half, you know, they have the stirrup on the tailgate where you step on to get on. I clipped my heel on it and landed on my toe, and I felt a crack. Anyway, they sent me to, I think it was the 24th Evac, you know, drove me in, and just as I got there, on a Jeep, they had helicopters bringing wounded in. I mean, just choppers full, and these guys, you know, the medics from the hospital running out with the litters, taking them off the choppers, and these guys are just, I mean, they were messed up. They were like these bloody, shredded bodies in their fatigues, you know, just lumps on these litters as they're running them in, and just, yeah, like chopper after chopper full of them. I don't know what was going on or what unit they were coming from. I mean, it was bad. And here I am hopping on one foot into the same place that they're going. So I figured I'm gonna be here like
Forever.
for a week.
Because
You
you're
know,
not high on the treatment
God,
list.
why would they even bother with me? You know, when we go in and it's this big room, and they put these litters up on like sawhorses, and
Yeah.
they got teams on every one, and I mean, it was like, whoa, it's friggin' amazing, you know. It's like how organized and I'm popping through. They're directing me, hop, 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 into this other little room, and this doctor walks over. He looks at my foot. He goes, "Hey, it looks like it's broken. Send him to X-ray." Take me to X-ray. They X-ray, bring me back. Doctor comes back and he goes, "The good news, it's not broken, but you're going to be on this for 5 weeks or so." Wrap me up, and I'm on my way back to base camp. These guys, they're still working on these guys. You know, I was in and out of there, X-rayed, 2 meetings with the exams by a doctor, and it's like that was the most efficient system of medicine. When these people I hear say the federal government can't run something, they should have seen that. That was the most efficient thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That they, and I, you know, and I was back in business. You know, if they want to keep men in the field, they had me back, you know, working in a dispensary. Actually, that's when they made me an ambulance driver, because of my foot. Because I couldn't go back out to the field. I couldn't even get a boot on for a while. And so they'd send me they're going to make me an ambulance driver. So they send me down to this little tip to get my military driver's license. So I go in there, and the guy goes, you know, his clerk sitting there, and he goes, "Have you ever had a driver's license?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "You just passed." You know? And then I'm an ambulance driver. And so, but that was my first assignment as an ambulance driver. And so, back then, as a civilian, you know, but I drove, except for my Model A, I drive as fast as I could go. I was like into speed. So I get this ambulance, which will only go 55 miles an hour, you know, but that's how fast I would drive it, 55 miles an hour. So I'm driving a load of sick call out of this forward base camp, going through this little village like this, you know, and past this Jeep, you know, and the guys in the back of my ambulance are going, "Hey, there's some guy standing up in that Jeep you just passed, waving his arms like I think he wants you to stop." So I pull over, and it turns out it's my battalion executive officer. He's all red-faced. His name was McBride, I'll never forget. He's all red-faced and angry. He goes, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" And I say, "I'm not in a hurry." He says, "You turn this Jeep around and you report back to your company commander." So I turned it around. It's headquarters company commander, because I was a medic. We're actually part of headquarters company. So I go back, walk into headquarters company, Captain Mankey. He says, "You're going back to the field." You know, McBride just called, so sprained ankle and all, I was back out there that afternoon.
What month was this in your
I'm thinking,
12 months?
I'm thinking it was probably maybe 3.5 months in, maybe 4 months.
So did you actually go back in the field?
Yeah, I was back that afternoon.
No boot.
And so I've not been a speeder ever since, because I figured the guy tried to get me killed for speeding. So I figure I don't ever want
Pretty
to. So
much.
what's the point? So
So
if you
you-
can't speed in the war zone, where can you speed?
So then you finished your tour back in the field and not as an ambulance driver?
Right. Well, and then after, by the 8th month or so, then I got transferred to a support battalion. And since I had a license to drive, I was an ambulance driver.
And what month was this in your tour?
That was, would have been August, so I was 8.5 months in
Okay. And you finished out your tour?
as an ambulance driver.
Okay. Everybody remembers when they were first notified that they were going to go home. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I had a friend that was a clerk, a battalion clerk, you know, like
Like radar?
yeah, like radar, or more like the movie, you know, it was an old World War II movie where, you know, there's a guy that can get everything, make everything happen. So I had a clerk like that. So he decided he was gonna set it up so I could go home 2 weeks early, which that was pretty nice, that was exciting. So he set that up, got my orders cut and stuff to leave, so I wound up going through all the processes to getting signed out, turning in my weapon, doing all this, that, and I got to the last place, and there was this lieutenant, he's looking at him, and he goes, "You're leaving too early." So we changed the date on it, but being the military the way it is, they don't know how to give you your stuff back. You know, after you've turned it all in. So my last 2 weeks, I didn't have to pull any guard duty or anything, because I didn't have a weapon, I didn't have anything. You know? So.
You just took up space?
Yeah, so I just took up space for those last 2 weeks, which was kind of a vacation of sorts. So, and then we sent us to where they'd send us to depart, and I loaded on a plane, and
Where did you go to load on a
we
plane?
flew out of Saigon, whatever it's called, I can't remember, it's the huge airport that's still there, actually. The name's escaping me right now, but you'd know it if you heard it. And they flew us to Japan. I remember, and I was hoping that when I flew home that it would be on Braniff, if you remember Braniff. They had the different colored purple and red and all these different colored planes, and the stewardesses were these skin-tight leotard things, and I got a Braniff, you know, it was like, all right. And so I remember they came by with these, like you could clean yourself off with them, you know, like towels to wipe yourself down, and I was clean, you know, I'd showered while I was at that place, but I'd put that on as like mud coming off me, you know, when I thought I was clean. But they flew us to Japan, and I can't sleep on a plane or a bus or anything, but I slept the whole way from Japan to the States. I missed the whole plane ride.
Wow.
14 hours I slept on a plane. That's still amazing.
And
too.
where did you come in the States?
Oakland,
Where you left from?
where we left from, and then I got went into the terminal there, and they were issuing us new uniforms. We had khakis, but they were giving us greens, you know, where they fit you and all that kind of stuff. And so they're saying, go here, go there, you know. And I remember I walked through this one door. I still only had a partial uniform, and this NCO comes over and starts screaming at me for going in there. And I'm thinking, yeah, I just got back. There's this guy screaming at me for walking through this door. And it's like, I'm just looking at him, and it's like his whole demeanor changed, you know, and it's like, I wasn't angry or anything. It was just like, but he had no power over me. You know,
It was like the policeman at the Veterans Parade.
well, no, that was fun. This was not fun. This was like a shitty welcome home, you know. It was,
But anything he said or did couldn't affect you.
right, it didn't touch me, and then he kind of got that it wasn't, you know, and he kind of got apologetic, told me what to do, you know.
I'm confused though, because they were issuing you new uniforms, and at that time, coming home from the war in California, it wasn't a good thing to be seen in an Army uniform.
Well, I didn't have any of those negative experiences like that, and no one told us not to wear the uniform or any of that.
So nobody hassled you or anything?
No. I think it was more 68 on that all that stuff started.
That's
I
true.
was still a little bit early.
That's true. So you're home, and if I remember on your biography, not long after that, you met your wife-to-be.
Right, I was still in the Army.
Where?
I was stationed at Fort MacArthur, the Army hospital there in San Pedro.
And what was your duty there?
I worked in the ER.
That's right, which you didn't like.
Well,